Hi all, I'm Vladimir. You are on the BimDoc channel. Today I'll show you the most secret thing. Obviously, my channel is specialized on working with BMWs and more software-wise. A lot of you have asked me, hey Vladimir, how to install all the software properly? How to install the ISTA, the software with what you can diagnose with BMW? How to install the E-Sys to work with the F or G series? How to install the enthusiast expert to work with the E-series, and so on and so on and so on. I've been asked that question by you guys so many times. I've just decided to make a video about that. So in today's video I'll cover how to install every single program you will need to work with the BMWs from E to G series. That will be very interesting. Let's go. Before we proceed to the exact topic of the video, guys, may I ask you a favor? Recently I was looking for my YouTube analytics and actually I have noticed that majority of you guys who are watching my channel, enjoying all the new BMW secrets, how to work with BMWs properly, you're liking very much, but actually 2/3 of you are still not subscribed. If you don't believe me, have a look here. So this is the takeout from the last 28 days. And actually you can see that 68% of you who are enjoying the content are not subscribing. Guys, why? It's absolutely not hard for you to hit that subscribe button and also hit the like, and I'll continue creating all those beautiful videos for you. We have a deal? Good. Let's proceed. First, let's agree on some rules of today's video. Obviously, using the illegal software is not legal. That's why I always recommend you to purchase only the legal software from the manufacturer, with that supporting the manufacturer. But if you do think in other way and you can find some workarounds, looking for some Google or whatever other means to get the software, it's absolutely up to you. So in that video we will not show you from where to download the software. I might leave some links in the description to that video to some software packs I have created by myself, but don't expect to find all the needed software. So obviously you just have to make your own research. But just a small hint, if during the video you will see what versions of the softwares I'm installing and you will Google for those, believe me, those will be the best ones. Also during the video I'll absolutely explain why I'm installing exactly that version of that or another program. When I was just beginning dealing with the BMWs, I was always chasing the newest software, and actually guys, this is the mistake. You don't need to use the newest software available, you need to use the most stable one. That's why in today's video, the programs I'll be using are not the latest ones, but are those which I highly recommend you to install. Of course, during the video I'll explain why especially that version is better than another version of the software. Installing the full package of the software usually takes me, because I've done so many times, around maybe like 45 to 60 minutes. So each 1 hour. Of course, I will not make the 1 hour long video. So in the video, I'll of course show you the version of the software I'll be installing. I'll start the installation, I'll skip the middle part, and I'll absolutely include the last part of the installation. So when I'm configuring the current software, because in some programs you need to just make some small tweaks. Without those, you'll be just unable to establish the connection. Also, if some configurations inside the computer will be needed, I'll also include those in the video. For your convenience, I'll create special timecode for that video. It will be in the description, and actually you can see that in the time bar as well. All the key moments will be highlighted there. For example, beginning of the installation of the ISTA, or configuration of the ISTA for F, G or E series, and so on and so on and so on. I guess this is definitely worth a huge like from your side. Thanks. First, the computer, which one I recommend at current moment for you to use, will be the Mac or the Windows platform. Of course, it should be the Windows platform. Yes, it is possible to install on the Mac, either on the boot camp or some kind virtual machine like Parallels, desktop and so on, to the Mac as well. But believe me, I have tried to work with BMWs on Macs and Windows books and so on and so on. On the Macs, you will sometimes just reach the limitation of the system. For example, you'll be able to work with the BMWs like coding, programming, diagnostics without any issues. But if you want to go way more deeper and, for example, work with the programmers like VVDI or CGI Pro, For example, my experience showed me that my Mac was unable to handle the programmers through the USB Type-C to USB Type-A adapter, and that's why I switched to the Windows platform. That's why I have two laptops, Mac for making all the videos and all that nice stuff, and the purely Windows machine to work with the BMW. So my recommendation is to go with the Windows machine. What specifications should your modern laptop meet? Actually, there are not many requirements. First, operating system. I highly recommend you to use Windows 10. Windows 7 is not supported. It's too old, it has seen dinosaurs, so forget about that. Why not Windows 11? If you are aiming to work only with the F or G series, yes, you can go with Windows 11 as well. I have made a couple tests. It should work pretty well. But not all the software do support Windows 11. That's why switching with Windows 10 will be your right choice. The amount of space needed on your notebook. A couple years ago, I made the same video about what laptop to use, and actually I recommended 500 gigabytes. For getting information, you will need at least 1 terabyte of space, because the newest databases to work with the BMWs unpack the weight around 300 gigabytes, and in addition all other files, and you'll just run out of space. So 1 terabyte is a must. Are there any specifications for the processor itself? Actually, if your computer is not very old, what means not very old? For it was produced maybe like 2018 or newer, you'll be absolutely fine with that. The software you'll be using to work with the BMWs do not have so huge system requirements, so it's not problem at all. So main two criteria will be 1 gigabyte SSD, definitely SSD drive, not hard disk drive, because hard disk is so slow, it will be just pain. So SSD, go for SSD. About the RAM, I recommend 16 gigabytes of RAM, so your computer will be kind of powerful, but actually 8 gigs of RAM will be also enough. And for the processor, there are no special requirements. Of course, the more powerful, the better it will be, but actually something from 2018 or newer will make the job absolutely fine. The screen resolution, I highly recommend you to switch with Full HD. Do not choose too big screen, because not all programs, for example E-Sys, cannot handle the, for example, the max resolution, the 4K. That's why Full HD will be the preferred choice. Now, the software, from where to get that? Of course, the best source will be the Google. You can download from there, from somewhere, or you can go to official websites to buy the official software, or you can just sit home and wait if someone knocks to your door. Someone actually is knocking, and go and have a look behind your door. Maybe there is some special delivery for you. I just have some kind of inner feeling that there is exactly the thing that we'll require. Ooh, someone just forgot a couple boxes over there. It looks like the external SSD. I just think that there should be all the software that you require during that installation. The original ACOM Next version A, absolutely needed, and brand new Lenovo laptop. We will play with that set today. So I guess on that 2 terabyte SSD Samsung drive, there should be all the required software, so it's just a huge lock. To work with the cars, you'll require some hardware. So, for example, ICOM Next. Always prefer the original tools. Actually, guys, if you're interested, in addition to today's video, not how to install all the software, but actually how to configure the ICOM properly to work with the BMWs and update the software of the ICOM, just leave a comment about that, and I might make also additional video about that. So let's put that to the side. And today's main item. Ooh, look what we have here. Actually, original ICOM name as well. We might play with that as well. Let's fire up the computer and let's prepare with the software installation. The first software I will be installing is the ISTA. This is the software that is used to diagnose all the BMWs from F to G series, from the oldest to the newest one. Okay, not the oldest ones, maybe like the E32, whatever, very old. They require DIS software, the DIS software. This is very old software, we will not cover that. But all the BMWs that are produced from, for example, 1995 or 2000 and newer will be supported by ISTA. So, installation of the ISTA. The first thing we need to do, go to the system settings, go to the application, and over there, programs and components, and turn on some additional Windows means. We will need net framework, and just allow everything, and the Windows will download all required components for you from the Windows update. It will be happening on the background. If you have done those, just allow Windows Update to download those. Press yes, I want to download it. And from the official Windows Update, you will get all the needed software. This is the precondition. So the version I do recommend you to install is the version of the ISTA 4.28. Why that version? I'll comment that a bit later. Let's prepare with the installation. So, the preconditions to install the ISTA will be, you will need the BMW standard tools. Those are very old tools, so no problems with those. You can find those everywhere, and of course you'll find those inside my softpack. So, unpack the softpack. It doesn't take too much time, just a couple minutes, if you have proper SSD drive. If you have hard drive, you can go have some coffee. Unpack done. Open it up. The first thing, BMW standard tools. You need to right click, press properties, and actually compatibility. You need to put the tick to run it as Windows 7. If you'll not make that, you'll be unable to install that current software pack on Windows 10 and Windows 11 as well. So choosing the language, English, pressing next, and accept all the agreements, next, next, next. I prefer always to install to the standard directories as the software commands. Press next, and again next. Do you want to install the drivers for the DCAN cable? Press next, choose in the previous one, so DCAN, COM port 1 and USB drivers. Press next, yes. Over here you can press skip, skip, skip everywhere. If you will be using only the ENET cable and ICOM, you will not require the DCAN cable drivers. If you are using the DCAN cable for the E-series, you will require the previous drivers as well. Anyway, you can install those, it will not harm your system. Over here press no, do not restart, because actually restart is not needed for that operation. Next thing to install will be the EDIABAS. It is also the additional software that is required for the ISTA to work properly. Everywhere just press next, 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 finish, done. Next thing we'll need to do before we can actually launch the installation of the ISTA, we will need to install the Java. For that one, actually I have already downloaded the Java. It will be the 46 bits and 32 bits, both of those. If you don't have those Java installations on your computer, you can always go to Java website. Let's choose the language for English for a better understanding. English, download Java. Over here, see all versions of Java, and over here download two offline files for 32 bits and 64 bits. I have already downloaded those, that's why they are over here, and install one then another. It doesn't matter in what sequence to install those, just press install. Installation process occurs. And done. And the next version. When you'll be installing the next version, it will be a bit different. Or look over here, you press install. It will load up And actually it will show you some kind, not error, but it will just ask, do you want to remove the previous version? Press no. So successfully installed, close, and actually didn't ask me. Sometimes it just asks you if you want to remove the previous version, press no, and it will tell you that both of the versions are installed. Good. So now let's go to installing the ISTA itself. As I told you, never run for the newest one, run for the most stable one. I'll prefer ISTA version 4.28. Over here, depending on the files you got somewhere from the internet or from the licensed software, whatever, the layout might be a bit different and installation process might be a bit different. Preconditions all are the same, but the must files are, so in that folder, SQLite databases, you absolutely have to have at least that global file and some kind of languages. English minimum and other languages if you do have those. Over here you can see I'm installing the ISTA version 4.28 and all the databases are from the same location named as follows. Also in your installation you should have BLP directory, you should have ISTA directory, it should be packed in somehow, and the installer as well. Double click on the installer. If something is wrong with those directories, ISTA will tell you and you have to fix that. If everything is right, you'll have next window. I always prefer to install everything to the drive C. Press next. Over here you can choose what to install. We'll add Russian as well and those other tools. Other languages are just if you prefer those, but not needed. The things you cannot uncheck is ISTA itself, BLP files, global directory and the English version. You just cannot uncheck those. And press next. Absolutely press create the desktop shortcut. Over here the interface, which one you will be working with, will be the DCAN, ENET or ICOM. Actually it doesn't matter because I'll show you the proper configuration of the ISTA later in that video. Press next, install, and now actually the installation process is being executed. It will take 15 to 20 minutes depending on the speed of your computer. And nothing spectacular here, so just stand by while it's being installed. Meanwhile we are still installing the ISTA on the background. Because time is the most valuable resource, let's continue installing other files. Remember the BimmerDoc softpack, you have unpacked it to your desktop, open that, and over there actually I have pre-configured some files for you. So, for example, if you go to your computer, drive C, and you open up the EDIABAS directory, and over there the ECU folder. So you can see some kind of PRG files. Those are essential for EDIABAS to work properly, but actually we can see over here we have only 32 of those. It's definitely not enough. That's why if you go to my softpack, over there EDIABAS, and actually just highlight everything and copy or cut, it doesn't matter. Cut will be faster. And now you go to the EDIABAS folder and you paste it there and replace everything. Believe me, that configure EDIABAS folder will work absolutely amazing with all the cars. It took kind of a lot of time for me to configure such a good configuration, so enjoy. And again we can see, for example, the ECU folder, and can you see how many PRG files is now over there? So this is the answer why with some software versions you were able to connect on some cars and with another soft packs you were unable to connect. That's why feel free to use mine. Next thing you will need INPA, the same action. You select everything, you cut, you go to your computer, drive C, it will be the EC apps, and order the INPA and copy and replace. My INPA version, it supports all the E series and also the F series, so it is very convenient to work with. And now the INPA is already configured to work with the BMWs. Convenient, isn't it? Next thing, the NCS expert. Same thing here, go inside in my softpack, open, cut, go to your computer, drive C, and guess what? NCS Expert, paste, replacing everything. The NCS Expert is the software needed to work with coding E-Series, and it also has to be configured properly. And I have already pre-done that for you. Just cut and paste or copy and paste, and you will be absolutely okay with that. We have made those basic preparations, and meanwhile, as you can see, the ISTA is still being installed. Let's waste no more time. Let's continue. Going again to my softpack, over there is utils folder, utilities. Copy it to your desktop. Open it up. There is A2 radar folder. Actually, let's rename that. Cut it. It is important to cut that. That software is needed if you're working with the ICOM to connect to the BMWs to detect the IP address of the ICOM. You have most likely noticed that during a lot of my videos, but definitely cut it. Now go to your computer, drive C, and over here, it doesn't matter what file system do you have, 32 bits or 64, go to x86, this is for 32 bit, and paste the I2 radar over there. Only after pasting the I2 radar, go inside it, right click, send to the desktop. And now if you double click it, it will show some firewall issues. Just press allow, and actually you can see the I2 radar is working perfectly. A lot of guys have also problems installing the I2 radar, but here it is how to make it properly. And to make everything perfect, go to the change the icon of I2 radar. It's basic Windows stuff, nothing special. You just go to the right, select the right icon, press OK, press apply, OK. Now it looks like fancy, fabulous. In utility folders, what else do we have? Actually, over there you have NCS dummy. It is already pre-configured, very good version. Easy connect, also pre-configured, as you can see, very handy, very needed. Everything will be present there, as you can see, everything. Also pre-configured. EDIABAS BMW coding tool, also over there, handy tool. Enjoy. And also present for me, the EDIABAS configurator 0.20. It is needed to change the configuration files of the EDIABAS. How would you connect to the BMW? It might be another topic for the video, but just be aware, so it is essential over there. So, how far are we at the moment? We are still installing the ISTA. We have made all the preconditions to install the ISTA. We have already installed all the software needed for the E-Series, for coding of the E-Series. But we still haven't done anything to program the E-Series, like ISTA-P, and we haven't installed the E-Sys as well. So ISTA installation is finished. We can press finish and let's check how it works. Let's configure the ISTA software, double click. If you have made everything before that properly, as I showed you, you'll have no problem running that. Over here, the first thing you need to do is to set up the ISTA properly. So you just press over here. Over here you can choose the language. Actually, the guy for whom I'm installing that software, he asked me to install it in Russian. So over here, choose the language. Next one, if you're working with the BMWs, make a click over here, print to file, and set up 12 months and never, so it is good. Next important is the vehicle interface with what you will be working. So if you'll be working with the DCAN cable to connect to the E-Series, you'll require to put the EDIABAS settings and also configure EDIABAS properly. If you'll be working with the F and G series, as my client will be, so you should choose the dealer organization or INET ICOM. not direct connection, but local area network. If one of those is not working for you, you can switch between those, so one of those should be okay. But in most cases, 99% or 90% of the cases, so those settings work okay. Over here, Inet as preferred communication via ICOM, leave it as no and press OK. Because I have changed the language, it asks me to make a restart. Absolutely, let's make a restart. And now I can launch it again. Actually, the icon for that will be fixed after the computer restart, so don't pay attention to that. So remember, I told you that we will be installing the version 4.28. I find it the most stable at the moment. That version it also have, if you go over here, it's like base functions, so you can actually select the vehicle and look for all the wiring diagrams without connecting to the vehicle itself. Some versions of the ISTA just do not have that option. That's why I find that version very, very useful. Yes, that version is a bit old, so it is 2018 or 2020 version, something like that. But believe me, I was working with the kind of new BMWs like 2020-21, and that ISTA was working absolutely okay with those. So do not chase the newest version, chase the most stable one. And actually you can see, you can choose even the engine and all the things, so that ISTA is working pretty well. Yeah, let's close it, we don't need it anymore. So actually now we have ISTA installed and configured. Next bigger portion will be ISTA-P. This is the software used to program only the E-series. So let's make it. The thing you will need, so basically installation of ISTA-P, it's a bit different from the ISTA Plus. With ISTA-P you just need to unpack it and use some kind of launcher to launch it. So over here we have the ISTA-P installation. Just unpack, choose the path. I always recommend you to unpack it to the drive C already, without any subfolders, straight to the drive C, press OK. Now depending on the speed of your computer, it might take some time. Actually that computer is kind of fast one. It is the new Lenovo with AMD 7 series, 1 terabyte SSD, so it's absolutely a beast. So let's just have a look to the task manager, just for example, performance, and we're unpacking that, and actually we can see that none of the parameters of the computer is used for 100%. Okay, now the processor is a bit, but actually we can see the computer can handle it really, really well. Why I'm looking at those parameters? It means that I can still put some more pressure to that computer during the installation. For example, I can continue installing other software without being slowed down. If in those parameters I can see that during unpacking whatever, so your hard drive is loaded 100% or your CPU is loaded 100%, there is no point to put another installation at the same time. You will just slow it down. But in our case, absolutely no problem. So let's continue. We're unpacking the ISTA-P, but you will be unable to just launch the ISTA-P. You will need special launcher for that. Where to get that? Usually inside the ISTA installation, somewhere in the tools folder, there should be ISTA-P loader, as you can see over here, and I always recommend you to use the light version. Copy that stuff to the drive C. Press yes. Right click and unpack into the folder. It's not a huge one, and you can delete the archive because you don't need that anymore. Over here is the ISTA-P loader. We will use that as soon as our ISTA-P is unpacked. And meanwhile, 1 more minute is remaining. You can drink some tea or whiskey or whatever you prefer during working behind the computer. Unpacking ISTA-P is finished. As you can see, it's unpacked over here. To launch it, you will need the loader for ISTA. Fire up the loader, it will ask you for the license key. Just copy and paste. It's setting down for a moment. And I always do recommend you to send the shortcut of the ISTA-P loader to the desktop and fire it up. You can search manually for ISTA-P or automatic search. If you used all the standard location, automatic search will make a job. Over here, you can choose the language. You cannot change it afterwards. You need to reset the loader and run the installation again. You don't need to unpack the ISTA-P again. Resolution. Over here it's very important. Go to the screen settings and see the resolution. Over here, actually you can see, so it is full HD screen, but actually you can see the scale, it is 1/25% scale. It means if over here I will put the full HD, it will tell me that that screen is not big enough for that resolution because of the scale. That's why choose a bit smaller one, and of course choose the expert mode. If you have full HD resolution and scale is 100%, then you can of course choose the full HD, so it is up to you. And everywhere just press continue, continue, continue. Over here press BMW and the launcher will start the ISTA-P. If you need to reset the launcher settings, over here, for example, there are separate tools. You can use the IBAC, install all the needed stuff, and actually over here you can see reset settings. So if you mischosen the language, after hitting reset the settings, you'll be able to choose the language again. The computer will ask you, do you want to allow ISTA-P through the firewall everywhere? Press yes, 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 yes. It takes a while to hit all the yeses because it's Windows. And if you have done everything correctly, ISTA-P will fire up. With the ISTA-P, one precaution: do not close ISTA-P with that cross over here. It might cause the ISTA files to be corrupted and it will not start again. That's why always choose that cross. It is important to close the ISTA and press close. In that sequence, ISTA will be closed correctly, no files will be corrupted, and you will be able to use that next time again. So we have finished of the ISTA-P installation. ISTA-P stands for Integrated Service Technical Application Programming. Let's finish with that. So let's clean up our desktop a bit. Let's rename some files so they will be named properly. Actually, that one should be called ISTA Plus. The icon will be fixed later, no problem. That one, you don't need that one, believe me. Just delete it safely. WinKFP is the part of the BMW standard tools package, and it is used to program the E-Series. Tool 32, very powerful software. Also the part of the BMW standard tools. NCS Expert used to work with the E-Series to code those. INPA, the software to diagnose BMW E and F series. Unfortunately, it doesn't work with the G series. It will be very handy. What else do we have here? And actually, rest of the utilities over here. So let's sum up. We have installed the ISTA Plus software to diagnose the BMWs, all the series. We have installed everything for the E series to code and program those. We haven't done anything to the F and G series to code and program those. So let's fix that. Now will be the time for the E-Sys installation. A lot of you asked me about how to install the E-Sys as well, so have a look. In my software pack, go to the E-Sys, and over here are some E-Sys versions that I can recommend you. So installed version 3.30, and actually we will need several versions of the E-Sys installed on one computer. Because different versions of the E-Sys can treat your car a bit differently, and for example, if with one version of the E-Sys your programming fails, I highly recommend you to try another version because it might save your ass. Small trick over here. With the E-Sys, to install several versions of E-Sys to the same computer, just use the standard path and just type the version of the E-Sys and press next. The location of the databases, leave it as it is. See data, create desktop, icon, absolutely. And installation of the E-Sys. Installation of E-Sys takes just maybe 1 minute. It's a very quick one. And press finish. On the desktop there is E-Sys icon created, but actually you don't see the version there, so I highly recommend you to rename it 3.30 because we have just installed that E-Sys. So the right shortcut will lead to the right version of the E-Sys. The next one I recommend you to install is 3.34. Next. And over here, just change it to the 3.4 directory and it will be installed to another directory. And that's the trick how you can have many E-Sys on your computer. And again, create the desktop icon. Install, yes. It asks, do you want to replace the sample files? You can please press yes. No, actually it doesn't matter because those are just sample files. And press finish, and over here exactly the same thing with the E-Sys, rename it 3.34. In my software pack you don't have any other E-Sys versions, but believe me, if you make a small Google research you will find a lot of versions. And I also recommend you to install the versions as follows, like 3.36.2, very good version. I use that version a lot actually to program the BMWs, all the BMWs up to service pack 15, so basically up to the G30 and G11. And actually, it tells 3.36. It is very good for the programming. It just chooses all the right files, the right places. So 3.36 for the programming is a must. And 3.30 E-Sys version has saved me kind of couple times with the head unit programming, because I didn't have a single head unit fail with 3.30. And I guess I didn't click to create the icon for the 3.30. It's bad. Let's fix that. Go to EC apps, EGS and 3.36, and let's create a shortcut for that, because I do prefer to have all the shortcuts on my desktop. 3.36, so it will open up the right files. So let's continue installing the other versions of the E-Sys. Old E-Sys, and actually there is even newer version of the E-Sys available, 22.10. It is already created by another software company, not the EGS, but another one. That's why it has another naming convention. It is a bit more complicated. If you don't know why do you need that, don't install that. So basically 3 of those, 3.30, 3.34 and 3.36, and for the beginning you are good to go. Let's clean up the desktop so it will look a bit more nicer. So those E-Sys versions installed. Now, actually, we have installed only the E-Sys. I haven't done anything about the databases that E-Sys requires to work with. Databases, there are 2 versions, light and full databases. Light databases are used to only code the BMWs, and full databases are used to program the BMWs. The huge difference: coding is safe, programming is dangerous. If something happens during the coding, you can repeat the process as many times as you want. If something happens during the programming, you can break the ECU and you'll be not able to recover that. Also, those E-Sys versions, they have to be configured properly. So double click on each and single of that, open it up, and everywhere in the options uncheck everything that is update related. If you don't know why, see my E-Sys for Dummies manual. Over there is told why it is so important to uncheck that. Believe me, it will save you. So just clicking through all the E-Sys versions, you can see some errors that the databases are not in the right place because we haven't installed those. Just uncheck all the update stuff. And that will be the first thing you do after you install the E-Sys. If you don't do it straight away, you'll forget about that. So we have installed the E-Sys. The things we still miss to work properly with F and G series is, first thing is database. I will be installing the full databases. I will do that over the night because unpacking those will take like just a lot of time. And actually we also missed the launcher for the E-Sys. Launcher is add-on to the E-Sys software itself. There are a lot of different launchers online over there. For example, E-Sys Launcher Pro from Token Master, very good tool. E-Sys Plus from one Chinese company. E-Sys Ultra, Bimmer Utilities, and so on and so on. There is such a big choice of different launchers. It's hard to recommend. I'm using several of those. Most likely you have seen in my videos the products that I'm using. That's why today I'll just show you all the launchers. They are the paid one. You just cannot get it for free. The only version you can get for free, and it will be enough to work with the E-Series, not E-Series, F-Series, will be version 2.8.1 or 2, something like that. I'll show you how to install that, because this is the one you can get for free, and actually it is included in my software pack. So if you'll go to my software pack, the E-Sys, over here, the Launcher Pro setup version 2.8.1, you can just install it to the default place. And actually, in addition to that, there should be some crack over there as well. But because the Windows malware, the software, the Windows Defender is treating that crack as a virus, that's why it has deleted that. That's why before unpacking my software pack, I recommend you to disable the antivirus, at least for that one single process. If you don't want to disable the antivirus, you'll be just unable to install the crack for the E-Sys. No other software do not require disabling the antivirus, but that one, single one, it requires, believe me. Because I promised you to show the full process of installing the software, that's why I'll disable my firewall temporary virus protection. And actually it shows it is disabled, and actually no, it's not disabled. Now it's disabled. Yes, now the antivirus is disabled. I can delete my unpacked software pack, and I'll just unpack it again. Now the antivirus should not delete the token buster. This is the crack used to work with the E-Sys Launcher Pro, the version we have installed. Over here actually you can see the token buster itself. Fire it up. You need to save the token. The pin can be assigned whatever, just use 1, 2, 3 as a default. Press save, and to the desktop save that kind token file. Press save. You can just leave that software aside. Over here, copy that file. Actually not copy, you can just cut it. I usually do, I go to drive C, and over there I create just token folder and put it there. Now you can launch Launcher Pro with that icon. You have to assign the version of E-Sys to be used. That free launcher that is cracked, it cannot handle the newer E-Sys than 3.30. That's why I have also installed the third versions. It just cannot handle the newer one. Choose that one. Over here, ista-path, it is the location of your token. Remember, we have placed it to the drive C, and over there, the token folder. Open it up. The pin was, remember, 1, 2, 3, 4. And press launch now. It will request you the code. Just copy that code into the crack, and here is the answer for that. Press copy. Over here, press paste, and now press activate now. And now if press launch now, it will open the E-Sys version 3.30 with the help of that additional launcher. That launcher allows us to go inside the ECU and modify some things there. In more details, I'm talking about that in my E-Sys for Dummies manual, so feel free to use that. And over here, actually, you can see it is secured by Token Master, so it is opened with the launcher. And now actually we can close the Token Buster, and you can activate the virus protection again, because we don't need that anymore. Oh, now it's activated. Good. And actually the last thing that is remaining on that computer is to install the databases. The light databases, unpacking those takes just maybe like 5 minutes, and in unpacking the full databases it might take ages. You will see that in a moment. So I have on my 2 terabyte drive that I just found behind the door, different databases are pre-installed there. So guy who was making that, it's absolutely amazing job. Why you might need different databases on one drive. For example, if you're flashing some ECU with one version of the database and something fails, you can use another version of the E-Sys, another database, or you need to downgrade, to upgrade, to play with the software of the ECUs. That's why several databases are needed. If you're making the fresh install, I always recommend you to use the latest on the computer. So that will be that one, and we can unpack it. The right path for that will be on the C drive, but actually you can just unpack it to the desktop. For the first time, yes, for desktop is okay, and then I'll show you where to move that. And press OK. And now everything depends on the power of the computer. So just some observations from my side. The longest time I was unpacking the database, it was maybe like 10 or 12 hours. It was computer slow as fuck. Sorry for my French, but it was like very slow. The computer that is kind of powerful, but it has hard drive, unpacking the full database will take you around 4 hours. If you have SSD drive, regular SSD drive, it will take you around maybe 40 minutes. The fastest SSD drives I have seen, it takes from 20 to 30 minutes to unpack the full databases. As you can see over here, the calculated time shows 28 minutes, so that computer is kind of beast. I'll just leave the computer for half an hour so it will be unpacked, and then I can show you where to put those databases to finish our installation. Meanwhile, our 7-zip is unpacking the full database. I'll tell you some more useful information. Remember, I told you that there are different launchers already available. At the moment, we have installed the E-Sys Launcher Pro. It is version 2.8.1. It will be enough for you to work with all the F series, but it will be not enough to work properly with the G series. Why that? Remember, we are installing the Launcher Pro, that version 2.8.1, and it was able to work only with the E-Sys of version 3.30. And E-Sys version 3.30, it can handle only database up to some level. All the F-series are old enough cars, so whatever software will be installed in the F-series, E-Sys version 3.30 can handle those databases, and that's why it can work properly with the F-series. But G-series, some ECUs have older software and another ones have already newer one, and that's why there will be mismatch between different versions of the software and databases. And this is the answer why you will need way more powerful launcher to work properly with the G-series. For example, on that computer, there is actually already Launcher Pro 5.0 pre-installed. You can run it, but actually you'll be unable to log in over there because you don't have the login information. I have no idea the login information of my client, which is his. Yes, I have my own account, but I will not log in my login data to that computer. So, because that client already has purchased the Launcher Pro version from the E-Sys, from the Token Master, he'll enter his login information, and with the help of that Launcher Pro, he'll be able to work with the G-series as well. But as I already told you, different launchers has different pros and cons. Launcher Pro was one of the first launchers available. The Token Master made a huge effort to make it, and actually he contributed to the BMW coding community just enormously. But now some other companies are also working on their launchers and making way another products. For example, personally, I do use E-Sys Plus from the Chinese company. It's a very good launcher. The best feature about that you can actually read the errors of the car without launching the ISTA. You can read the errors straight from the E-Sys. It is very convenient. Some other launchers do also include that. For example, recently I have used the Bimmer Utilities. I haven't purchased that launcher for myself yet, but I think I'll purchase that also to make some test on that. So if you're interested in comparison of different launchers, because I have actually a lot of those, I can without any problems make some comparison video about the different launchers to tell you which one to choose, which one is the best one, and the different pros and cons of different launchers. I have unpacked those databases. Look how huge are those, almost 300 gigabytes. It's just a lot of space. That's why 1 terabyte drive is needed. So now let's place those databases to the right place. I always recommend you to cut those, not to copy, because cutting will be way faster than just copying those. And cut those to the right place. The right place will be drive C, data folder, and over here actually you can already see the psdzdata folder. Just place into the same directory. Cutting and pasting those will not take a lot of time, so it's kind of quick process. Just wait for it. And as you can see, it's finished. How to check if those databases you have unpacked are installed in the right place and working properly? Just launch the E-Sys, and actually the E-Sys will tell you if it's okay or not. E-Sys has fired up. Now open the connection manager, and actually over here, wait for it a bit. And if over here you can see the different platforms of the BMWs to connect to, then it means your databases are installed properly, and that's it. If you don't see those over there, it means you have made something wrong. So either in the E-Sys the path is set up not correctly. The correct path should be C data or whatever other you could choose, but my recommendation is to choose the standard one, and in that case you will see those. And that's it. The video, it is a bit longer than usual YouTube videos, but I have covered a lot of different information. I created time code for you, so if you don't need to know all the process of the software installation, you just only need the ISTA Plus, just go to the right section. If you skip that, if you don't understand something, just reverse back and see how it works. I guess that will be kind of beneficial for you. If you still haven't subscribed to my channel, please feel free to make so. If you do like my content, also hit the like button, write the comments about the possible future videos, and see you next time. Bye. Actually, one more afterburner for those who do prefer watching the videos until the end, like until the really end. One thing I forgot to mention, Windows updates. Please do the Windows updates before installing whatever BMW software, because it will fix a lot of different bugs and issues, and believe me, with those your Windows platform will work way better. Because if, for example, you reinstall the Windows, install for example Windows 10, like the first ones, the old one, you might have some issues with the newest BMW software. You'll be just unable to install that. You might be wondering why I'm making everything exactly the same as the vendor showed us, but nothing is working. The answer is Windows Update. Just run those and you'll be fine. Now, see you next time.